existence.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining me on this beautiful Tuesday, July 8th, in the middle of summer here in the United States. And today we're going to talk about something that has been asked by a couple of, I think maybe just one channel member. So let me show you this. We have our members only Discord. So if you join the channel as a member, you get access to this. Basically, it's just a big discussion group. And Brocklanders has asked how to get computer monitors, which is a great question. He asked this before and I was like, yeah, that's a good idea. And then I kind of forgot about it. And I think maybe one other person asked about it. So thank you guys for the idea for this. You know, I try to make the channel content be based on what you guys are asking for, less so what, you know, I think you need to know. So great idea. And we're going to get into that. Before we do that, as always, if you have any questions throughout the stream or topics you want me to cover, even if it's kind of off topic, just drop a chat or comment if you're watching a replay of this live stream. But before we get into that, Cedar actually contacted me. Cedar, you guys maybe don't know too much about Cedar, but Cedar they are kind of the pioneers of film noise reduction. And they have a really cool history page on their site, which is cedaraudio.com. And then you can look at their history. So Cedar has been used in film soundtracks for dialogue noise reduction since like the early 2000s. And really you could kind of go back to the late 1990s. Cedar developed this really unique algorithm that's basically a multi-band expander, as far as I understand it, that was used for restoring old recordings, and then it got turned into the DNS 1000, which was a hardware unit. And then the DNS 2000 is kind of where I started to, do they have a picture of it on here? Let's see. The DNS 2000 is kind of what I remember in like the early 2000s, you know, 2008 or so. This was in a lot of the bigger studios that I worked in. And this was like a hardware unit. So you'd run your dialogue, like a mono dialogue aux, two of them actually, to this through AES. And then you get the noise reduction going, and they had a cool controller for it. And it was like pretty revolutionary at the time because you could save recordings that would normally be slated for ADR. It was real time, low latency. And so in 2014, I think, when I moved away from LA and I started working remotely, I was like, I kind of need to buy Cedar if I want to keep mixing and doing pre-dubs remotely, because the dub stage I worked at had Cedar. Everybody I worked with that was operating on like a high level used Cedar DNS1. And so at the time, Cedar DNS1 was like, I want to say it was like $2,600. It was thousands of dollars. And I ponied up the cash, bought it because I really thought, you know, I need this. And I did. I made my money back within a couple weeks of buying this multi-$1,000 plugin. But Cedar contacted me last week about doing like an affiliate link. And usually I'm like, I don't know, because I'm kind of on the hook for stuff. And I don't really like being like a ShamWow salesman type of guy. But I do believe in their products, and especially with their price restructuring they have like dropped their prices so much it makes me cry a little bit. Like, you know, DNS1 I bought for almost 10 times this price, and it's like a couple $100. So if you want real-time noise reduction that has been used in Hollywood films for like 25 years, I have an affiliate link on the video description. You can check it out there. They also have free trials. Try it, see if it works for you. Me through the DNS one right now. I still have the old version. I'm really slow to upgrade stuff. So yeah, so that's my Billy Mays sales pitch for now. And now we can talk about what the video is about, which is, ooh, can I unplug this? Reference mixes. So yeah, you guys can see this. This is a Blu-ray disc player. This is a Pioneer that is Mac compatible. And Brock Landers, that's his username, not his real name, asked how to listen to reference mixes in your studio. If you're like me, you have a 5.1, or my studio's Atmos, but basically a surround studio. It's really useful to be able to listen to mixes in 5.1 because you want to, like, you know, be able to reference them and see what other people are doing with their mixes, and also maybe check some like stuff you've worked on. You know, like I've got, do I still have the disc? My studio's kind of a mess. I had a Blu-ray somebody sent me that they made of a movie I mixed, and they said, hey, check this, make sure it sounds right. It did, sounded great. But basically, how do you watch a film in your studio in 5.1? Let's say, you know, you don't have a home theater setup in your studio, which most of us don't. We have a computer, we've got our monitors, we've got our screens, and we've got an interface. So how do you hook up a 5.1 film mix, you know, pump it into your studio and listen to it? So this drive, this Blu-ray drive, which Blu-rays and Macs don't generally get along. In my research, this Pioneer was Mac compatible. It is I'm trying to see what it is. It's USB-C. Does it have there we go. It's the Pioneer BDR-XS07S. And it plugs right in with USB-C. Yeah, you guys can see that. No power required to your Mac. I assume it would work for a PC as well. And we are going to test this out and see if we can get a 5.1 mix. I'm actually going to let you guys pick. Please pick the right one. So I've got Star Wars and Band of Brothers. Yeah, you guys can see. There we go. So Star Wars is a Blu-ray. Band of Brothers is a Blu-ray. So I'm going to let you guys pick. Whoever votes first is going to get to pick which of these okay and great series / films is going to go in the player. And we're going to test this Blu-ray player out and see if we can get... Sun Green says Star Wars. Well, you picked wrong. But since you're the first one, I got to be fair. Okay, so we'll do Star Wars, which this one I think is in Dolby EX. So it has DTS HD. So let's try this. And this is not the correct Star Wars. This has all the extra CGI stuff. At least let's pick one that wasn't messed with too much. Phantom Menace, sure, why not? The best of the bunch. I agree with most of you in the Peanut Gallery that Band of Brothers would have been the better choice, but we got to go with what was picked. So we're gonna do that. Let's see. Does this? I think I just jam it in there. Oh, is there already a disc in there? Let's see. I need to eject this, which is one problem I had. Maybe I didn't take, I didn't take the old disc out. Well, that's why. And this disc is like pretty good. It's not too scratched up. So here's the screener I got from a family-friendly horror film that I worked on, which was really fun. Made by my friend Hank Braxton. Should be out soon, hopefully. Okay, let me quit this application. So the catch to this, I've got the disc in the player. It's spinning up. I can hear it spinning up. So the catch with a Macintosh is you need to have a program that you spend a couple bucks on, and that's called Blu-ray Player Pro. I think it's 20, but unfortunately you have to buy this application for Mac. It's a one-time purchase. It's not like a, you know, subscription or anything. And you can see the Blu-ray is playing. We're going to check on my Auria to make sure we're getting output here on all the channels. And you can see this is my microphone, so that's going to show up a little bit. Actually, let me go to Mixer and make sure I have that off. So there you go. It's all 6 channels. Let's just play it. Oh, this is going to get me in so much copyright trouble. Let me take this off the screen. Yeah, I don't want to make George mad, so let's play it. We'll just look at the output here. Let's get this off of here. And we'll skip the 20th Century Fox logo. Let's get to some pod racing here. That's fine. So you can see it's all going. It's all good. We got all the channels playing. We got the very anti-Semitic flying guy there. And who else do we got? The council or Congress or whatever it is. I don't know. I'm not a Star Wars guy. All the frame wipes are good. Here we go. Here's an action scene. So it's all playing good. It's all playing in 5.1. It looks okay because it's a Blu-ray. And yeah, so it's very simple. You know, you put the disc in, you open up the Blu-ray player app, and it plays. So that is the first option for doing a 5.1 in your studio. You do, okay, why is there no LFE? That's how a lot of films are mixed. You use the LFE for a low frequency effect. It's not there all the time. And that's another reason it's really nice to be able to do like, you know, play it in your studio to see how much LFE is actually used. And it's less than you'd think. So one thing I would like to tell you is, let's say that's not good enough, or maybe you don't like to set up the audio like here. Where's the audio? So audio language. So you can enable, oh, you guys can't see this. You can enable digital audio output. So AC3, DTS, DTS. This app will actually decode these and send them to your interface. You do, however, have to, in system settings, make sure, nope, that's not right. So it's in applications, utilities, audio MIDI setup. You should have already done this, but if you haven't, then, you know, you'll need to do it anyways. Where is the dang show audio devices? Yeah, okay. So you have to go here and make sure your speakers are configured in your audio devices. So you can say I went to utilities, audio MIDI setup, and then window audio devices. So the configuration I have for this is 7.1.4. I haven't tested this with an Atmos Blu-ray, which I believe exists. But you do have to assign these and make sure you test them. This should already be done, but if it's not, just verify that this is indeed set up so that the sound goes where it needs to. So this is kind of the back end setup from the Blu-ray app. This is on your system preferences or audio MIDI setup. For PC, it's going to be a little different, but you know, on a Mac, this is how you do it. So make sure your channels are configured properly. Make sure you have the Blu-ray player app and a compatible Blu-ray player, and you can listen to this in your studio. I'm also going to show you, since I'm going to get this Phantom Menace disgusting, I don't even know why I have it, but I do, probably because I have kids. Get it out of there so it's not defiling that player anymore, and put in a real work of art, which is Band of Brothers, probably my favorite limited series ever. It's one of the things where you don't skip the intro music because it's so good. It's a Cayman score, and so like when I played this in my studio in 5.1, I forget what, it's a chorale he called it, for the intro of Band of Brothers. Do, 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 do. Woo, man, I was like, whoa, this is great. There's something extra you can do here, which is quite interesting, which is actually bring this into Pro Tools. So let's set that up. Let's go down here, and we're going to set up, got to be careful because we'll do 6 mono, we'll do auxes. So this can be nice. Okay, do not pirate anything, obviously, you know, that's a big no-no. Do not pirate anything. But if you wanted to, let's say, analyze a mix a little more, you could by bringing the audio into Pro Tools. So let me just set that up let me think of how I need to do this. So I've done this before, but it's been a while. That's fine. We need to have the Pro Tools Audio Bridge 16. I like to use the Pro Tools Audio Bridge 6. So, how to do this in Blu-ray Player Pro is, I think, audio language. No, it's not that. So, you have to go to System Settings, and you have to go to Sound, and you have to set the output to Pro Tools Audio Bridge 6, okay? So that now has swapped, and sorry this is a little bit scatterbrained, but you can see there's no output coming out of my Audient Oreo right now because I've changed the system audio to the audio bridge. So in Pro Tools now, if I go to Setup I/O and I go to Aux I/O, we're going to bring in Pro Tools Audio Bridge 6, and these are stereo pairs, which I guess is probably fine. So let's go here, and we're going to go to, oh, let me mute these. I do not want to get copyright strikes on this. That would be not good. So basically, I am just bringing the inputs in, and I forget the key command for cascading the inputs, so they're correct. So just bear with me here. You can bring them in as 1 6-channel input as well, but the problem with that is you're not going to be able to pan them where they need to go. So these should be output. Oh, I just have a stereo. Let me do that. I/O. Output. Yeah, I have that. And let me do that. Okay, so now if I do this, oh, that's right. No, that's right. Okay, so why is this not working? Let's see here. Audio English is good. It was working for a second. Yeah, that's all correct. So this should work. I'm trying to think why this isn't working because it's playing my favorite. Maybe I have to do, let me go back to the menu and try this again. I should probably open up the chat so I can see what you guys are talking about. Okay. Back to here. Let me go to System Settings. Pro Tools Audio Bridge 6 is correct. I want that. Let me go back to Audio MIDI Setup. And it shows that it's playing there. 6-channel 32-bit float. Let's configure the speakers. So that's all correct. So why is this not working? That's what I want to know. I probably should have had this set up before. Yeah. Mono, that's all good. It could be the sample rate. I've noticed that if the sample rates are mismatched, it will not work. So let me just check this. Sorry about the troubleshooting while I'm on here. Audio language is all fine. Advanced. So let's only do, let's try the AC3 setting. See what that does. Nothing. All right, I'm gonna quit and restart it and see if that does it. And if this doesn't work, you know, then we'll just move on. Because I had it. I saw it pop into the aux 2. So this should work. If we're gonna assign these to where they need to go, we'll just do, I think it's LCR, LS, RS, and then this should go. We need to set up a mono, send for the LFE. Let me do that real quick. New subpath, mono, LFE. Move the puck over to LFE. And then you should be able to go bam. It's telling me that you can't copy this. I'm not copying it. This is for educational purposes. Might as well rename the tracks while I wait for this. Oh, there it goes. Okay, so I just had to restart the app. And now I'll go back to my Auria, and you can see we're good. So you guys should not be able to, yeah, you guys will not be able to hear this, which is great. Let's play part 3 Karen Tan. Great one. Probably one of the best episodes of the whole series. So here's Chris Kamen's awesome score filling the 6 channels. Looks like I got the LFE swapped. So let me go back here. Okay, so it's LR. Yeah, I know. Right. Center. So it's correct. One trick in Pro Tools, if you have like duplicate names, is you can put a space after it. Okay, so now let's repuck these. So this should be output RS, LFE, and then this should be the center, and this should be the right. Okay, so now no LFE for the main title. This is how you should mix. Don't just use LFE for everything. And then, let's see. Okay, so another cool thing about this is if you wanted to now have a 5.1 master, you can actually start to look at like the levels on stuff. So this is a main title. It's just music, but you know, this was mixed for TV. And it's coming in around like -20 up to -18, momentary max of -17. And let's just go to like a shooty bit, because this episode has some shooty bits in it. Yeah. I highly, if you haven't seen this, check it out, because it's great. So there's some shooty stuff in here. We're going up to -11 on some of the gunshots. And you can see there is LFE, there's tanks and stuff like that. There's explosions, there's mortars. I think, yeah, this one doesn't have the flak gun, but it's got explosions and stuff. So this is a great way to check mixes and kind of see like where they're at on levels. And, you know, I did this live. I set it up live, had one little glitch where I had to restart the player, but totally doable for you to set up on your own. So I need to turn that off because I'm going to get stuck watching it because it's such a great show. It's one of my favorite things to watch. So yeah, so that is a great way to do it. Let's go through some chats here. James, great name. And thanks for the super chat, by the way. I appreciate that. Great topic. I think I'm going to get an HDMI extractor and use an Apple 4K TV box. The native Apple TV app works great to watch stuff in surround. So that is true. The Apple TV does work great. The problem is finding an HDMI extractor that maintains the quality of the audio. I've done a lot of research on this, and by a lot, I mean a couple hours, and I was not able to find an HDMI extractor box that didn't degrade the audio coming out of the media. So I actually bought one and tested it, and the output was so low, added so much noise to stuff. It's like at that point, it's not really an accurate representation of the mix in the material. So if you can find an HDMI extractor that doesn't mess with the audio, let me know what it is, because I would love to have one. But, you know, otherwise, this is kind of a nice thing because you can just keep everything in your computer, you know, digital, route it using the audio bridge, the ProTools audio bridge, and the aux.io, bring it into ProTools. You can even, don't do this to pirate it, but if you record the mix, just so you have the audio file of the mix for reference. I have done that with like 28 Days Later and a couple of other films that were just like great, you know, films, so that I could have a little calibration session that I could bring when I set up a new studio, or if I'm checking out a studio, I might want a 4-wall. I could pop those in and be like, yep, this is like I remember, or then, you know, the surrounds are a little too hot. So in addition to regular sweeps and signals, you can use reference mixes to check out a room, make sure the room is how you'd expect it to sound, but you have to be very familiar with the content. So yeah, is a Blu-ray disc, and I gotta be careful because it's still kind of spinning. This is a Pioneer Blu-ray. So you can do that. You can get this Blu-ray player app for PC. I'm sure it's way simpler because PCs and Blu-rays talk really nicely to each other. But for a Mac, just so you know, it is possible. Maybe I can get away with this still. You know, the picture quality is pretty good, and the sound quality is excellent, and it's playing in my studio. So I will selfishly come out here and watch stuff when I don't want to be bothered by wife/kids. And, you know, obviously I'm hard at work, working on a project and watching Band of Brothers. So yeah, so this is one option. Now we're going to talk about an even easier option. If you have Netflix, which I had Netflix, but I don't have it anymore. If you have Netflix, you can get a, let me see if I can pull this up. It's the Chrome 5.1 extension. So, okay, here it is. This is an option if you have Netflix and you have Chrome. This is the Boom 3D 5.1 surround for Netflix. I have it installed, but I don't have Netflix anymore. I just wasn't super pleased with their content. But I was able to go to Netflix in Google Chrome, play something, you know, Breaking Bad or whatever, and listen in 5.1 and do the same trick I did here, which is using the audio bridge to bring it into Pro Tools so that I could sniff around a little bit and see, like, how loud did they let stuff get? How quiet did they let the dialogue get? So it's a great way to study if you want to see what other mixers are doing. That doesn't necessarily mean it's the right thing to do. You know, like, there's a lot of complaints from viewers of dialogue being too quiet. So just keep in mind that just because another mixer has decided to do something doesn't mean that you should bite their style or copy what they're doing, because it may not be the best for the project you're working on. So even though reference mixes are awesome And it's just enjoyable to sit in your studio and listen in 5.1 on your calibrated monitors. Still know that your project that you're working on is going to be different. It's going to have different requirements. It may not be smart to just copy what other people are doing because it might be wrong, you know? So, yeah, so that's my spiel on that. Let's see, other comments. Are all Blu-rays mixed for 5.1? You'll find that most of them are, Mike, and a lot of them are near field mixes. Not all of them. It's kind of, it's something you need to look at because some of them will say, hey, this was the original theatrical mix, which is fine, but, you know, it's a home format. So hopefully they've had a near field mix and that's what you listen to. Let's see. Other comments here. Russ says he's excited for this one. James got the super chat in there. Thank you so much, dude. Every dollar helps. I'm working again, thank God, but YouTube has been a huge blessing. And the other thing that's been a huge blessing is diving into developing audio plugins. So this is the last one. I've got 2 plugins that I developed. They're both on my website. Auto compressor is what you've been listening to for this stream and all my streams for the past, you know, couple weeks. There's also a channel strip plugin. So these were all painstakingly made by me and released for all operating systems and formats. I have one bug report on auto comp that I'm going to be dealing with today, which I believe is related to the meters. So look for a new version of this that I had a report in Cubase on Intel Mac of basically the meters, I think, crashed the GUI. So I'm going to replace these meters with something that's a little less Duro-ish and more flat, just flat colors that should fix that issue. But so far, you know, there's a bunch of these out in the wild. The feedback has been really positive, and I really appreciate you guys picking this up because, like I said, every dollar helps. I don't have a Patreon or anything like that. Really, I want to give you guys something. If you're going to support me, I want you to get something for it, either knowledge or a tool, and not just, you know, throwing money at me. And that's not what this channel is about. It's about education and helping. So we are talking about getting a 5.1 mix into Pro Tools and or just to your monitors. Another thing I should tell you is that having calibrated monitors is very important. And so I've got my redneck correction profile here. Is it set up? Yeah. And I like this Audient Aurea because it applies the correction in the interface instead of in like a plugin or some other kind of thing with your B chain. So this is really nice to have. And it's nice to listen to mixes in a calibrated environment. So yeah, let's see other comments here. We've got, okay, this is good from James. James is the name of one of my kids, so I'm partial to James. My question is, after a mix is delivered, what happens to it? I feel like depending on where you play back, they're doing some loudness normalization. Yeah, I've noticed that too. I have kids, so they watch Disney Plus, and some of the films are way more compressed than I remember. Like Cinderella, Snow White, you know, those were mixed way, way back in like the 30s and 40s. And so there's also some interesting stuff going on. Like they did some kind of surround mix for those, and they were originally mono films. So there is stuff going on under the hood. I'm sure it's proprietary. It's under lock and key. You know, you can't talk about it. But I'm positive there's stuff going on. Amazon, for example, normalizes their content that comes in that doesn't meet their spec, and I'm sure other ones do that too. And with AI, it's become a lot easier. Example, I noticed watching Apple TV on my laptop feels like it's more squashed than native on Mac. Yeah, I agree. Is there any way of monitoring in binaural if you don't have a speaker set up? That's from M. That's a good question. Let me think about this. Waves has NX, Waves NX, which I can show you that. Trying to think of other. Oh, and then the Dolby Atmos render you could do. You could totally do that. If you have Pro Tools Studio or Pro Tools Ultimate, you could have the Dolby Atmos render, set the re-render to binaural, and then listen on headphones. It's not going to be quite the same, but it's going to be close-ish. So Waves NX, as much as I dislike, oh goodness, the cookies, always the cookies, man. As much as I dislike their model of sales and everything and some of the business stuff they do, I've used this before. I think I bought it and paid for it back when I had Waves, and it does okay. The other really cool one to look at is the, oh man. So when I left LA, I was very concerned about being able to mix in surround, not knowing where I was going to live. So it's like, how am I going to, I don't know if I'm going to have a good calibrated room or have, you know, the time to set it up. And I was working on a project while I was moving. So one thing I looked at, which is price and quality level just up there with the Cedar audio stuff, is the Smith Realizer. It's a Y, not an I, Smith Realizer. This is a really fascinating hardware setup that takes a measurement of a room and a measurement of your ears and is able to mimic, model a room, you know, surround, multi-speaker array and surround, and model the room for a 2-channel headphone setup. It's really interesting. Let's see how much it costs. Because when I looked at this, it was like, it was fairly expensive. Yeah, almost $5,000. I'm sure once you set up all the other stuff, it would be about $5,000. So you've got gain switches, 2 headphone outputs. And I talked with these guys and they said, well, we would send you like the measurement stuff. This was like, you know, 10, 11, 12 years ago. They said they would send you the measurement stuff and you take measurements of your ears. Look at all this, gosh. And it's like, it's calibrated to your specific ears. So, but at this point, if you're going to spend $5,000 on something, just treat your room, just set up your room. don't, I mean, if you got the money and you want to try it out, go for it. But like, why would you not just treat your room and set up the speakers, you know? So yeah, possible, doable, but maybe a little expensive. Okay, good question. Okay, yeah, so that was from M. So yeah, good questions. Keep them coming, guys. We're at 8:30 my time, so I would love to keep talking about this. I've covered, I think, most of the stuff I wanted to. I did my Billy Mays sales pitch for Cedar and for my plugins and talked about Discord. We kind of talked a little bit about headphones and stuff, which is good. That's a good topic to cover. Other ways to watch 5.1. I can tell you some of the other ways I've done it in the past. You can have a Blu-ray player with an optical output, optical audio output, and then get that into an interface that has an optical input. But you run into a couple issues with that. One of them is clocking. You have to clock because you're going digital to digital. And the other thing is the player needs to be able to decode the AC3 to PCM wave, because getting a Dolby AC3 signal into Pro Tools, there's really only one plugin that can decode it, and I haven't had great luck with it. So you really need to be getting PCM wave audio to Pro Tools. So your player needs to be able to decode it. That's one of the benefits of using this app, the Blu-ray app, because you can just set everything up digitally. You know, make sure your audio output for your system is the Pro Tools audio bridge and get it into Pro Tools digital. you know, do a double conversion. Okay. There's a good question from James. Did that Chrome extension sound decent? It did. I checked something I mixed that was on Netflix, and it seemed like it's exactly how I remembered mixing it. So that's a great thing you can do also, is if you have a project that's out there, you can check it out. I didn't find a way for Amazon Prime to natively do 5.1 out of a Mac, but you know, maybe it's possible. This is from Hans. What's your opinion on New Gen Audio's dialogue check? I haven't really messed around with it too much, so I guess I don't have an opinion on that. And playback device. Oh yeah, okay, so this is a good question. So Amazon has done a dialogue intelligibility audio option, and I think other streamers have it. So it kind of allows viewers to remix the mix, which is a huge topic of debate for a lot of re-recording mixers, probably some producers, and the argument is, well, the mix is the mix, and so why would you need to remix the mix? And I'll tell you why. It's because the mix isn't optimized for a home listening environment. So people are having a hard time hearing dialogue. Obviously, there's exceptions to that. Shows that are mixed wonderfully. There's exciting action. There's loud music, and you can hear every word of the dialogue. But there's also those shows where the actors are mumbling. They're talking under their breath during a huge action scene. There's bombastic score. There's Hans Zimmer brass blasting huge stacked, you know, extension chords. There's gunfire. There's engines. There's overlapping dialogue, and then you have, you know, Tom Hardy going, I'm not going to be able to hear that. So people have introduced these AI remixing settings. It really started with receivers and soundbars doing a dialogue boost, which boosted the center channel 3 to 6 dB. And now they're starting to be, we're starting to have AI features that allow dialogue boost or dialogue clarity features. And it's a symptom of the disease. And the disease is I don't want to say bad mixing. It is inconsiderate mixing. It's mixing in a big dub stage, and then that content goes to a small screen, and all the decisions that are made starting way before the mix. I'm talking writing, production, the actor's decision on how they're saying their lines. All those choices lead to the mixer's hands being kind of tied. We have mumbly, low dialogue. We have bombastic score. We have 400 tracks of sound effects playing. The technology has allowed for so many layers and so much sound to be thrown at people, and the actors get quieter and quieter every year. So it sucks. It really sucks to be in that position. But the symptom of that is we get these remixing tools to allow people to hear the dialogue. So my opinion on it is that, yeah, technology is going to, as Jurassic Park, you know, Ian Malcolm says, life finds a way. Well, technology finds a way too. And that's what's happened. So good question. I could do a whole stream on that. Alex Champagne says you can stream your iPhone to your Mac via AirPlay. And if your Mac is set up correctly, it should be able to decode surround sound format. I didn't know that. That's kind of cool. Yeah, I wonder if it plays back like the small screen optimized version, which I think James said that watching the Apple TV app on his laptop feels like it's more squashed than native on a Mac. So they're pretty smart about that stuff. Okay, so yeah, this is good conversation. I feel like we've covered some good topics. I bumped Cedar, I bumped my own stuff, I bumped the Discord and membership, so all that homework, boring stuff is done. And we talked about the Blu-ray app, which is good. There it is. And you guys did not get to do it, but I got to watch a little bit of Band of Brothers. Hopefully I don't get any copyright strikes, because it's like, you shouldn't have heard the audio even. I guess I'm trying to think of other ways you can play back. I talked about a Blu-ray has audio outputs. Like this one is just a USB-C, you know, it's like really, it's a little bigger than the disc, and it's just only got the USB-C and then a power. But a traditional Blu-ray player that has like an HDMI output. Another thing you could do, as James said, is you can get a demuxer. It's a box that decodes the HDMI audio to 6 to 8 audio channels. But like I said, I haven't found one that was high fidelity enough for really critical listening. So, okay, here's a good question. Milo says, how do you make sure dialogue stays present in all that action chaos? That's a good question. So if you can be a part of the edit process and the scoring process and make suggestions, and there's been a handful of times where I've been able to do that. They've brought me on the show early enough where I can listen to what the composer's doing and suggest even picture changes that will help the sound mix. That is ideal because you can say, hey, I know you want this to be exciting, but we need a little pocket for the dialogue here. And that I found is the best way to get things audible is to create space, clear things out, mute things, lower them, time things, move things a frame or two back or a frame or two forward so that you have a little pocket where the dialogue is the main thing. So you can do that by moving material during the picture and or sound editing phase to create a little pocket, especially for comedies, action comedies where there's a punchline. You got to have space, otherwise the joke won't land. So that deals with the pacing of how sounds are set in the timeline. It also deals with the rhythm of the scene. You know, there's usually a rhythm to the cuts and a rhythm to the audio. So making space for it in the editing phase is crucial. The next thing you can do is start to trim layers out, EQ stuff, and volume. Use volume when you're mixing. EQing a pocket, like an EQ, I can show you this in Pro Tools. It's probably better. I'll just throw it on a track so you can see. What do you guys want to do? You want to do Pro Q or do you want to do, let's do the stock one. Okay, so this range in here, let's make this Q go really wide. So one thing I like to do on a music or sound effects bus is if a piece of dialogue needs to poke out, I'll do a quick one of these. Shoop. I'll just do a quick dip. It can be like a second, it can be 2 seconds, it can be half a second, it can be 5 frames, but just a little shoop. Bring all the mids down. You know, it's centered at around 600 hertz, but this whole dialogue range from 100 to like 5K gets dipped on the offending clashing stems. So music, sound effects. So that's something you can do. And you can do a similar volume adjustment where if you were doing it with a mouse, it would look something like this. Just make a little dip, 5 up to 10 dB really for this single dialogue line to poke out. These type of short, this is, well, that's 9 seconds. That's too long. If something was like, this more, where it's like 2, 3 seconds, maybe 1 second, 5 seconds, are basically imperceptible by the audience, but it clears you enough space. And generally you have to start these moves a little bit before. Let's say the dialogue starts here. You have to start these a little before to prepare people's ears for hearing the line. So if the dialogue starts on this marker, just put this here, then your dip should really start a little before. If you do this, people are going to lose the first part of the line. So you have to prepare their ears for listening to the line. You can maybe, make this go back up a little faster, but that type of deal is really useful and works great for clearing out space. But again, the best thing you can do is just move stuff out of the way. If you have like a gunshot and a punch, if you can nudge it a couple frames and create a little pocket here, that's the best way to go. So really good, super awesome question, Milo. Thank you so much for that. Alexander Ed says, anyone's home audio setup is a factor as well. Was over at a friend's house who has her speakers on the floor, and they weren't very good speakers at all. She had subtitles on the whole time. Yes. Hillpost asks, is TrackSpacer going to do the same work? Probably. I haven't tried TrackSpacer. I really enjoy doing this by hand. So yeah, I'm a big proponent of manual automation, and maybe TrackSpacer would do something similar, but I just like to do it on each track. So it seems like TrackSpacer is getting some votes as a thumbs up in the chat. So I'm not big on like being a plugin junkie, but maybe I'll check it out. So good questions. I've got about 9 minutes. So any other, even not related to reference mixes, any other questions or, you know, ideas to talk about? Well, let's use up this full hour. James says, my question is, do you ever worry about using certain plugins like that in multi-mono? No, usually if you do it in multi-mono, this is a mono track, but if you're going to put it on, I'll just drag it up here. So as long as this link button, the master link button is on, it's going to affect all the channels. You can obviously unlink it if you want, but a multi-mono version is going to have the automation follow for each of the channels. Mark says, I have a caveat about using commercial Blu-rays and DVDs for reference. The dynamic range is usually compressed, mastered to play nicer on consumer systems. The dynamic range will not be the theatric mix. I don't see the mix in there, but I think that's what he's saying. So yes, Mark, that is exactly true. There are a few films who use the theatrical mix. I know on the Blu-ray release of Master and Commander, that is the theatrical mix. Some of them have the option to play the theatrical mix, which is really handy. But to just play devil's advocate, if you're listening in a home studio, you should be listening to the home theater mix. Like, if you're watching my channel, maybe you own a dub stage. It's possible you own a dub stage with like 40-foot long walls and 25-foot high ceilings, but probably not. You probably have a small studio like me, 200 to 500 square feet, set up for 5.1 or Atmos or maybe even stereo. So in those smaller rooms, you should be listening to the home theater mix. Imagine if you were a rich guy, you know, you make 400 grand a year and you're setting up a nice home theater. It's not going to be a dub stage. Maybe if you made like $1 million a year, it would be, but most of the nicer home theaters are living room sized. So listen to the home theater mix. And because if you're working on indie stuff, it's mostly going to be watched on smaller screens. So you shouldn't get in the trap of mixing a theatrical mix in your small, tiny little studio and thinking it's going to, one, translate to a theater, but also two, that they won't come back for a small, you know, near field mix. So I suggest if you're working on indie stuff or you're not sure that it's going to, maybe it'll play in one theater for a festival, you know, or a limited run, like 100 screens, you know, art house theaters, which don't have great sound systems anyways. Just mix it like you would for a home theater. And that mix is going to translate well to home theaters. It's going to translate pretty good to a theater, but the 90% of the viewers watching on their home system versus too theatrical, too dynamic, and then you got to crunch it down for the home release. Okay. Let's see. But still, yeah, good. It's really good to discuss that. DVDs especially, because they're standard definition, they have less dynamic range. So James said, no, my bad. The multi-mono question was about plugin like TrackSpacer. Yeah, usually the directors that want sound effects and music blasting the whole time aren't super experienced. They're not sure about their film. They're not confident, and so they just want it to be loud all the time because yelling is the way you get what you want. Those directors aren't that fun to work with. What setting do you use to downmix Atmos to 5.1? I hear it can affect the sound of the stereo down mix. I kind of ran into this with a documentary that I mixed in Atmos. And what I suggest doing is to do the down mixing yourself. You can do the Dolby Atmos render for that and have it down mix the 5.1 re-renders for you, which I've done. You can also route the 12 outputs from the Dolby render back into ProTools and do your own manual down mixing, which then you can do things like pull down the height channels. So it's going to depend on the film. At what point does the mix become the film? I hope that's not airy-fairy. I guess it's a fear of over or under mixing kind of a question. No, that's a good question. That's really good. That's kind of in that like philosophy of mixing type of category. So usually if I'm mixing something, I get it to where I'm happy with the mix and I'm proud of it and it feels right. And then if the director comes in at that point, you know, they're going to have things that they want to do. So it goes from being my mix to being a collaborative, community-owned mix. Director, producer, actors, producer's girlfriend, producer's mistress, they all are going to chime in on the mix and we're all going to take ownership of it. And it's going to become a community project. Unfortunately, there's usually, well, actually, I should say very fortunately, not unfortunately, there's usually a timeline involved with the mix and you have a deadline. If it wasn't for the deadline, projects would never get finished and you'd have mixes that you'd be working on for years, and that's not good. To me, a mix becomes the film when we have put our thumbprint on it, we've done our best to support the story, we're happy with how it sounds, and we come to the time where we have to deliver. It's not going to be perfect. There's things that I will listen to that it's like, why did I do that? Or I wish I would have done this instead. But to me, every project that I work on is kind of like a time capsule of that period, that time in my life, the work that I did. I'm proud of that. Maybe I would do a better job if I mixed it today, but that's part of the journey of becoming, you know, a professional in what you do, is like you have these stair steps along the way that lift you up and lift your skills up and sharpen you. So to me, the mix is done when we're out of time, out of money, or people are happy enough to sign off on it. And I'm usually the least picky about it. Like by the time I show the director my work, I've signed off on it. They might call my attention to something where it's like, oh yeah, that's a good point. You know, let's try something different. But by the time I bring them in, I want to be proud and happy of my work so that they have the time to weigh in on stuff and make it their own, you know, really collaborate and not be so protective. Don't mess with it. No, it's a community mix. So I hope that kind of answers the question. All right, we're just about done. Let's see if there's any last questions. There's no rules really. Yes, the feel is what to go by, and then listen to the director. That's good. Time capsule. Yeah. Yeah, don't cringe at your stuff. Like, be proud of it. All the work you've done is what has gotten you to this point. So don't be ashamed of that. Own your journey. Just be proud of it. All right, I think I'm going to sign off. Again, thank you guys so much for the support and people who've bought my plugins, AutoComp or DXB Channel Strip. I super appreciate that. It was a huge leap of faith for me to jump out of my comfort zone and try, you know, coding these plugins. So we've had quite a few sales on the website. So AutoComp is an automatic leveling compressor. Really unique the way this is set up. And that's what you've been listening to on the stream. So this will automatically compress dialogue and other sources, really transparent, and can add a tremendous amount of gain to low volume stuff. And then the first one I made was DXB Channel Strip. This one is a channel strip with EQ, compressor, de-esser, and a limiter. you can see the evolution, kind of like the GUI is a lot cleaner on auto comp. And I added, people asked for controls to be able to turn off stuff. So I have a toggleable limiter and a toggleable lift. And this can get really aggressive at high settings. So it's been really cool. I've sent a couple of demos out, but generally I want to limit the amount of piracy that happens. So I'm kind of stingy with the demos. But if you're interested, you know, you can contact me on the website here and ask for a demo, and I'd be glad, especially if you're watching this and you're a YouTube subscriber or channel member, just let me know and I will gladly send you a demo. It's going to be time limited, but you can at least check it out on some stuff. But that's just kind of like, thank you. This is my way of saying you guys supporting my channel. I don't want it to be for nothing and just be like, you know, send me Patreon and subscribe and like, no, I want you to get something out of this, learn something, get a tool you can use. So yeah, so I think depending on when I start this new show, I may not have time to do a pre-recorded video, but I'm going to keep doing the streams. Thank God I got some union work that I'm going to be starting for like 10 weeks. It's going to be awesome. Get keep the benefits going and pay some bills. So I'm really thankful for that. I'm going to keep streaming through that, but I'll have less time for edited videos because, you know, union TV show, like you're just kind of on the clock. So thank you guys so much. Thanks for checking out my videos. And, you know, if you have ideas for videos you want me to do, like live stream topics, please get in the Discord, drop a comment, drop a chat, say, hey, can you cover this? And I will do my very best to cover what you guys are asking for versus what I think I should talk about. So thank you guys. Have a great rest of your week, and I'll see you next week. Till then, take care.